Krishna Sharanam Samasta Jagatam Krishnam Vina Kagati Krishnena Pratihanyate Kalimalam Krishnaya Karyam Namaha Krishna Trasyati Kala Bhima Bhujago Krishnasya Dhasosmyaham Krishne Akandita Bhavatu Me Bho Krishna Tvam Meva Ashrayah. Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna Ki Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. I think we are missing a beat. We are either half a beat fast or half a beat slow. Let's do it again. Just normal beat, bro. The usual Madanga beat. Your first beat. Yeah, Prabhupada beat. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopal Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopal Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopal Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopal Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Jai Shri Harinam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Holy Name. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radharamana Hari Govinda Govinda Gopala Gopala Radharamana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Radharamana Hari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna,
Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra Yuga Dharma ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Ananta Kori Vaishnavrinda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande. I hope your neighbors are all right, Prabhu. You sure? Did you speak to them? They know, huh? Okay, fine. Because sometimes, we're all very enthusiastic, but they may not be so enthusiastic. Sometimes it's a bit tricky. But generally our experience is, somehow in HDB flats, neighbors tend to give and take more. Whenever we've had programs in condos, they're very tough. They make it very difficult. If you're in landed property, it gets worse because it's even quieter, isn't it? Yeah. But what devotees generally do is that they try to serve some prasadam to the neighbors. That always helps because everyone becomes very happy, you see. Mm-hmm. So thank you all for coming together. It's so nice to see everyone in face without the mask. At least, we can see whether you're smiling at us or you're not happy with us. With the eyes, it's a bit difficult sometimes, but at least like this, we can all see each other. So it's really nice to see everyone. And I'm just very impressed by the front row of young children. How they are sitting still, I don't know. This one must be a yogi because he hasn't moved yet, But it's all right. If they get restless, they don't have to sit here, right? I'm sure some arrangement can be made, not to worry. By nature, children are restless. That's acceptable. It's their nature. But by nature, adults should not be restless. That is very important. We should have enough sense control now to be able to hear, especially about Krishna. So today's topic, Tulsi Charan Prabhu has kindly given us, it's a very nice topic from the Gita. How many of you have I met previously? Some of you look familiar, some don't. Yeah? Okay, maybe we have met before, but it must have been I think it was 2 years maybe, 3 years? 2019, no? Yeah, so that's why. And to all of those whom I've not met, thank you very much for joining us. Very nice to see everyone. This is a very important shloka from Bhagavad Gita. So we'll just read the shloka and then try to say something on the shloka, the translation, and the purport. The purport of the shloka is actually very important because it is given by the acharyas. And the acharyas are experts in this area. So whenever you want to know something about something, you go to an expert. And spiritual life is like that. No one can claim to be an expert unless they have actually studied it, and more importantly, they are practicing it. You cannot speak about something that you have not experienced. It's very difficult. At one level, superior knowledge is knowledge which has been gained by experience. But inferior knowledge is knowledge which is just book-worthy. We speak about something because it's technical. Sometimes people speak about spiritual life and they argue and argue. There's a lot of gymnastics that goes on in spiritual reasoning. But until they practice it, they will not be able to have a taste of it. See, we spent 10 minutes just chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We didn't talk about it, but we acted on it. We all practiced it. We chanted it. And each one of you can attest to the strength of the chanting, how powerful the vibrations were, how it just transformed everything in just a few minutes. The energy that came from the kirtan is transcendental. No one here in their right mind can say that energy is material. If you go to a rock concert and you hear that energy, it's very different from the energy that we just experience here. Because these names are transcendental. The names of Krishna, they are considered absolute and transcendental. Which means every time we chant Krishna's names, Krishna appears. He appears in our heart as Paramatma. He appears on our tongue as the holy name. And that is why it is so powerful. If you call out anybody's name here, right, and they are not present, they will not appear before you because they are not absolute. Now, supposing I call any of the children's names here, unless they hear me, they will come out. Otherwise, they will not come out. But when you chant Krishna's names, Krishna appears. And that is why you can feel a different sense of being, you see. So in this shloka, one of the most important concepts in spiritual life is given to us. So we just chant it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dehinosmin yatha dehe. Dehinosmin yatha dehe. Kaumaram yauvanam jara. Kaumaram yauvanam jara. Tatha dehantara prapti. Tatha dehantara prapti. Dhiras tatra namuyati. Dhiras tatra namuyati. Dehinosmin yatha dehe. Kaumaram yauvanam jara. Tatha dehantara prapti. Dhiras tatra namuyati. Dehinosmin yatha dehe. Kaumaram yauvanam jara. Tatha dehantara prapti. Dhiras tatra namuyati. Anyone like to chant? Dehinosmin yatha dehe. Kaumaram yauvanam jara. Tatha dehantara prapti. Dhiras tatra namuyati. Any of the ladies? Matajis? Radha, you want to chant? Dehinosmin yatha dehe. Kaumaram yauvanam jara. Tatha dehantara prapti. Dhiras tatra namuyati. Very good. Dehinaha. Of the embodied. I'm just reading the word to word so you can repeat. Dehinaha. Of the embodied. Asmin. In this. Yatha. S. Dehe. In the body. Kaumaram. Boyhood. Yauvanam. Youth. Jara. Old age. Tatha. Similarly. Deha antara. Of transference of the body. Praptihi. Achievement. Dhiraha. The sober. Tatra. Thereupon. Na. Never. Muyati. Is deluded. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Please repeat the translation. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Now we hear the purport. I'll read it. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet, the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering, according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly body for superior enjoyment of material existence. So in either case, there was no cause for lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained, on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable, against the principle of the supreme soul being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the supreme exist eternally, sanatana, and are called shara. That is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. The theory of reflection can be applied to the super soul, who is present in each and every individual body and is known as Paramatma. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. They are not on the same level as it will be apparent in the beginning of the 4th chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then their relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy Maya, then there is no need for one being the instructor and the other the instructed. Such instructions would be useless, because in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. Jai Shla Prabhupada ki. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So this shloka is very important, because in this shloka, to understand the context of it, don't forget that Arjuna did not want to fight on the battlefield in the beginning. When he turned up at the battlefield and saw half of the battlefield was all his other relatives on the side of the Kauravas, he was not very enthusiastic to fight. And he started finding so many reasons and favorable arguments why he should not fight. You know, our mind is very powerful. When you don't want to do something, the mind can find so many favorable arguments why you shouldn't do it. Have you found that to be true? If you had favorable arguments why this evening I should not come for the program, you would find many reasons why you should not come. You know, I'm very tired, I had a whole long weekend, F1 is coming, there's going to be traffic, all kinds of things we can bring up. We can say so many things. The mind is very powerful. But Arjuna was in that same position. He was coming up with so many different excuses. And one of the excuses, of course, was that all these are my relatives. How can I kill them? And if I kill them and I take away their life, then what will be the essence of who they are? What will happen to them? And now when he becomes very confused, and that was earlier in chapter 2, he then decides, after making so much of favorable arguments and speaking up against not fighting in chapter 1, he then finally surrenders to Krishna. In 2.7 of Bhagavad Gita, a few verses before, he tells Krishna that, Krishna, I am now bewildered. I have lost my composure. I have lost my understanding. And therefore, I am now in a position where I am a soul fully surrendered to you. Up till that 2.7 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna's relationship was that of what we call Sakya. They were in the relationship of friendship. And very often, Krishna acted like the perfect friend to Arjuna. It is said in Bhagavatam that Krishna and Arjuna would speak for hours about everything, because he was in a very friendly mood. But at the end of the day, our acharyas tell us that no matter who Krishna is, in whatever relationship he may have with us, sometimes we are older and we see Krishna as a child. Sometimes we are younger, we see Krishna as our master. Sometimes we are equal, like Arjuna, and we think Krishna is our friend. The gopis thought that Krishna was their conjugal lover. Hanumanji felt that Lord Ram was his master. So many different relationships are there with Krishna, but ultimately, Krishna is still the super soul. He's Paramatma, and we will always be Atma. Sometimes you hear in Hinduism this idea that when you realize who you are, you will become God. But that has no basis in Shastras. It is something that you hear very often with everyone. But when you actually read Bhagavad Gita and you read the Shastras, Aham Brahmasmi means not that I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi means that I am actually inquiring as to my nature. What is my nature? That is very important. Because as our acharyas tell us very nicely, if we were all God, then why are we in this difficult situation? God is God. God doesn't have to wake up one day and say, oh, I have to become God. You are God from the start. But none of us are like that. We are all imperfect souls. That is why we are struggling in this material life. One day we are very spiritual, but that spiritual nature can suddenly be washed away very quickly. You realize that sometimes we are very fixed on Krishna. Some days some disturbance comes, right? And we can very easily forget Krishna. Sometimes when everything is very good, that's the time we forget Krishna. We put Krishna on the back burner, right? And say, Krishna, it's okay. You've done your part, very nice. The next time I have an emergency, I'll come running to you. That's what very often we do actually. And when we are in emergency, then we are the best devotees in the world. We can't forget Krishna. But other times it's easy to forget Krishna. So how can we be God then? Even from that basis, right, it's a ridiculous proposition. That's why we have to be very careful about what we are reading, Prabhus and Matajis, and from whom we are reading. Everyone today is an expert in everything. But in spiritual life, there is such a thing called parampara. It is known as disciplic succession. And there are only 4 authorized sampradayas in this world. All acharyas agree on that. And one of the authorized sampradayas for Kali Yuga is the sampradaya of Brahma Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. This is stated and accepted by all. That's why we are reading this version or this edition of the Bhagavad Gita. Because in this edition of Bhagavad Gita, there is no talk about Krishna is not the true God, someone else within Krishna is the true God. You will hear all this in many other versions of Bhagavad Gita. But actually, common sense will tell you, if Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, Krishna says, I'm God, then he's God. And he proved it in all his messages, in all his leelas. So, it is a question of understanding these things. And that is why in today's shloka, it is very nicely stated here. Krishna is putting forward an argument that Arjuna has put forward before to counter. Arjuna had said before this that actually Krishna, Bhishma and Drona, who are my grandsires and very, very important to me, how can I kill them? And Krishna is telling Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, you should know by now that our body is temporary. This sharir by nature is temporary. Whether you are going to fight and do your duty on the battlefield or you don't, eventually Bhishma's body and Drona's body will also have to end. You are not the cause for someone's body to deteriorate. It is the nature of the body to deteriorate. And isn't it true, Prabhus, Matajis? Have you not realized that, now all these young children, they are at the beginning part of their life. Everything is good. Have you noticed how much energy they have and how little energy you have? Right? After a while, you feel you can't chase her. You can't chase them. You can't keep up with them. Of course, the older you are and the younger they are, then the more in trouble you are. So it is a fact, as we grow old, it is very nicely stated. Even in this body, right, the body is dying from the moment it is born. Science verifies that. All our cells, they die, they regenerate. They die, they regenerate. Even while we are living, we are dying actually. And one important feature that no one can escape in this world, the moment the soul, Atma, assumes a sharir, is deterioration of our body. It will deteriorate. It's only a question of time. And it's only a question of when and where. Nobody can escape this. That's why, Yudhishthir Maharaj was asked by Dharmaraj, Yamaraj in Mahabharata. Of course, he was in the form or disguise of a yaksha. He asked him, what is the most amazing and wonderful thing in the world? And Yudhishthir Maharaj answered very nicely by saying, the most amazing and wonderful thing in the world is that every day someone is dying. But those who live actually think they will live forever. Isn't it true? Whenever we go for these funerals and all, we think, oh, poor thing, But we never think it might turn his next. We think everybody else in this room will die first, but I will live just a little longer than everybody else. Somewhere in the mind we have this idea, don't worry, you don't have to pull alarm bells, it's not going to happen. But we don't realize that by nature, this body and death can come to us anytime. So the point that Arjuna is being told here, that the body is already changing from youth, right? From childhood, right? To youth. Kaumara means childhood, Yauvana means youth, and Jara means old age. It's already moving, whether you like it or not. And the soul is the same soul. That's the important thing we must know. Have you all realized how, even though you are growing old, in your mind and your heart, right, you don't feel actually you're old. Of course, by society, you have to behave your place. Nobody dresses like 50-year-old man should not dress like 20-year-old boy. But in our hearts, right, we're actually very young. People look at us and say, my God, look at him, how much he has changed, But in our hearts, we are still looking very handsome, still looking very good, still looking very strong. I'm thinking in my head, I still have a whole head of hair. We all think that way, you see. That proves to us that consciousness is actually eternal. Our consciousness by which we project through our mind is the soul. That is the soul, you see. So whenever the soul thinks it is all right, the reason why it is all right is because that is the nature of the soul. But we mistake that the soul is the body. That is where we have a problem. And that's a dangerous thing. A very simple way of understanding that. Because from young, I think we are told when we read Shastras, you are not this body. How to understand that? If someone slaps you, and say, Prabhu, you're not this body. You are soul. You should not feel anything. Now let me slap you. You're not going to say, oh, I didn't feel it because I am not this body. You feel it actually. So what does it mean, you see? What it means is, it doesn't mean we don't feel and identify with the body. It doesn't mean that. It's practical and natural for us to identify with our bodies. We all came here as husband to someone, wife to someone, and children to someone. It's all identity. But at the back of our mind, we should always be sure that we are husband to someone in this life, that we were wife to someone in this life. In previous life, we were also married. In previous life, we had husbands and wives. We had so many nice children. But none of us can remember our children. Despite telling our children in that life, you are the only one I love. I'm sure as husbands, we must have told our wives, apart from you, there is no one else in my life. This you told last life. Now in this life, you're telling another girl that. But for the life of you, you cannot remember. You can't remember. I remember asking my Guru Maharaj, isn't it better, Maharaj, that at least we remember who we got married to before? Maharaj said, better you don't remember. One life, one wife is enough, Devaki. How many more wives you want to remember? So it is very natural, you see. We feel this way. But that doesn't mean that we identify this body as the be-all and end-all of everything. There is a nice shloka in Bhagavatam that makes us understand that. Even the children, all of you, you're all intelligent, you can understand this. Yatha jale chandramasaha. Chandra means moon, right? Jale means water. So yatha jale chandramasaha, kampadis tat krito gunaha. Gunaha means quality. And kampadis means to quiver. So the nature of water is kampadis, it quivers. What happens is that if you go to a lake and the lake is very still, you will see a perfect reflection of the moon in the lake in the night. Am I right? What happens if the lake starts quivering because of the wind? A person looking at the reflection of the moon in the lake when it is quivering may be mistaken to think that the nature of the moon is to quiver also. Because if you don't look up, you will think, hey, the moon is also quivering. And we identify the nature of the water mistakenly with the nature of the moon. You see that? So that's why Bhagavatam says, Drishyate asan api drishyato. What we see is not really true because we are seeing the reflection. In the same way, Atmano anatmano yataha. In other words, just like we mistakenly see the reflection of the moon in the water and we think the moon's nature is to quiver. But actually, the quality of quivering is in the water. It has nothing to do with the moon. You see the point? So the nature of the soul is not to quiver, but the nature of the body is to quiver. But the soul, when the soul is conditioned within the body, we mistake the movements of the body for the movements of the soul. Now you may ask a very important question, and I'm going to answer it now. How do we distinguish the movement of the soul from the movement of the body? That's going to be the key. The only way to distinguish the movement of the body and the soul is by the practice of devotional service. The moment you practice devotional service, you build a bridge between your soul and the super soul. That is Krishna. And at that point of time, Krishna gives you the consciousness to understand that whatever that you have that you think you love in this world, you should at the same time remember that they will not be with you forever. That can only come by the mercy of Krishna. This is very important. Savai nivritti dharmena vasudeva anukampaya bhagavad bhakti yogena tirodatte shanai iha. So that shloka tells us how to come out of this mistaken quality of quivering. Right? Very nicely it is stated, Savai nivritti dharmena. Nivritti, you know, nivritti means to disengage. Nivritti means to renounce, to move away. You free yourself, nivritti, right? So the idea is, the only way to come out of this bodily conception of life is dharmena. Dharmena means to become engaged. So it seems to be a contradiction. How do you become detached by becoming engaged? The way to do it is become detached from material activities and become engaged in spiritual activities. That is very important. Now the next question you'll ask me is, but I have to continue all my duties. But the answer to that is, spiritualize your duties. That is very important. How do you spiritualize your duty? When you take a fire and burn it, as the fire is burning, sparks are there, isn't it? When you touch the spark of the fire, it will be hot for a moment because it is in touch with the fire. But the further away it goes from the fire, it loses the heat of the fire. You see the point? So in the same way, when we are trying to disassociate ourselves with matter, it is not that we must stop being good wives. It is not that we stop being good and dutiful husbands, and not that we stop being good children. We do all of this, but we put Krishna in the center. We understand that our children are gifts of God. Our wives and husbands are gifted to us. Did any one of you select your parents? No, no one selected your parents. Of course, if you selected your parents, you would probably, either you would be very happy with your selection or you won't be happy with your selection. But you don't have a choice. Krishna selects your parents. We may think some of us are not in the arranged marriage department. Some of us are in what we call love marriage. We may think that we selected our partners. You may have selected your partners, but ultimately he sanctions who you end up with. If he doesn't sanction, you can stand upside down for 30,000 years. You won't get married to the person you want to. It won't happen. It won't happen. If you really, really wanted to do something, have you found how you try to do something but you can't get it? Sometimes you're going in this direction and suddenly Krishna is pushing you in that direction. That means that you are trying to understand that there is more to life than just this sharir. You see the point? It's very important. So Arjuna was told by Krishna not to stop fighting. He was told by Krishna to fight, but don't fight on the basis of bodily behavior. They are so and so, I must kill them. No. You have to fight because dharma was being compromised by the Kauravas. There was a higher principle to this battle. Now, all of us don't have to fight with each other and say, I'm following the principle of Gita. You don't have to do that. All you have to do every day in your life is that whatever you do for your parents, for your children, for your husbands and wives, do it by always putting Krishna in the center. And how do you put Krishna in the center? By firmly remembering that they are not your property. Your wife is not your property. Your husband is not your property. If something is your property, you should bring it with you when you die, or you should have it with you when you're born. Neither of it qualifies in anything that we have. Any child born here with anything? Nothing, isn't it? Nobody came with any clothes even. Nobody. If you had your PhD in your past life, when you were born, as you were born, did your PhD cert also come? Maybe it was faxed over just as you were born. In past life he was PhD. It doesn't happen. You start from ground zero, isn't it? So we should learn to understand, first of all, that nothing we will take with us. Now, the moment you understand nothing you will take with you, what is the effect of that? Then you will understand that nothing belongs to you. Then you will understand that everyone is just living as a caretaker. You are living like a maidservant in the house. When the owner has left and gone for pilgrimage, the servant of the house takes care of the house very diligently. But the servant is never under an illusion that this is my house. They always know I am taking care of it for the satisfaction of my master. And if you ask them, why should you take care of somebody's house? They will tell you, this is my duty. And they're very happy about doing that. So caretaker mentality is how we come to understand this text 13. This is how we are not bewildered by changes. We will not become bewildered. Bewildered means muyati. You become confused. Why suddenly someone died? Why suddenly this person did this to me? It happens in our life. Nothing is plain. Children grow up to understand the disappointments of life. Parents want to be there for them. But the best advice you can give them is to tell them, these things happen, but they happen to our sharir. Understand that everything is finally under the control of Krishna. You may think something belongs to you, but learn very quickly that everything belongs to Krishna. The moment you understand that, then you will not feel sad or happy if you have something. You will just learn to serve your wives and husbands and children instead of using them for your own satisfaction. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, we utilize family members for our own satisfaction. We say, yes, we love you very much, but I love you to the extent that you do something for me. If you don't do something for me, why should I be so happy with you? But Krishna consciousness brings your love from a conditional level to an unconditional level, where you serve someone. These children are gifts of God. Instead of parents thinking they belong to us, we should think that they have been given by Krishna to us. Why? To serve them. How? To make them Krishna conscious. If you give them the idea that this world is temporary, as they grow up, they will not be bewildered when things change around them. They will not be bewildered when something leaves them. They will not be pained when there is some separation from an object of value. They will not. They will have dhiraha. They will have the quality of dhira. Isn't this the best investment that we as parents can give our children? Otherwise, we give them education. But you all know, you came from a generation that your parents educated you. That's why you're here. But education alone is not enough to free your mind of pain and difficulty. Sometimes the more higher you go up in the scale ladder, the more challenges there are in life actually. So the real answer is to understand this point. Yatha jale chandramasaha. Every time you have an issue in life, remember, your soul by nature is peaceful. But you are seeing the reflection and thinking, I am very disturbed. The sharir is disturbed, but you are not disturbed. And in case you want to think how to maintain that concept, very simple. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. When you chant Krishna's names, you connect to this idea that you are not this body. He will give you the intelligence. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. In Chatushloka Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I will give intelligence to someone who is bhajatam priti purvakam. Someone who is very, very dear to me, who is performing devotional service. I will give him that consciousness to understand it. So it is not something which you can do in a mental gymnastics. You can't. But you can do it if you become a devotee. And that's why Arjuna was being told by Krishna, Drona and Bhishma will not die. They will die, their bodies will die. But they will continue to live. In fact, they are such great personalities. Either they will go back to Golok Vrindavan, or wherever they are going to go back in the spiritual world, or they will come back as great personalities. So why are you so worried? Better you worry about your own consciousness. That's what Arjuna was being told politely by Krishna. The same thing was told to Dhritarashtra. You all know Dhritarashtra, isn't it? Everyone knows Dhritarashtra because even though the Kauravas were decimated and the end of the Kaurava war meant the Kauravas were gone, Dhritarashtra still wanted to sit on the throne. Do you know, at the end of the Kaurava war, he did not get off the throne, He still wanted to sit there. But Yudhishthir Maharaj and the Pandavas were so nice that Bhagavatam tells us that they allowed him to sit on a throne. They thought, never mind, our uncle, what to do? He's lost all his sons. If he wants to think he's king, let him be king. It doesn't matter. So he sat there thinking that he's still king. He lost 100 sons. He lost millions of soldiers. He lost everything. But he's Dhritarashtra. Dhrita means to hold on very tightly. And Ashtra means property. So Dhritarashtra means one who holds on very tightly to one's property. The opposite of Dhritarashtra is Dhrita Hari. Dhrita is there. Hold on tightly. But instead of holding on to that which you cannot hold on to because it won't come with you, why don't you hold on to the lotus feet of Lord Hari? Because he is eternal. If you hold on to him, your life will be eternal as spirit soul. This we forget, you see. So actually, the truth of the matter is, today in the Kauravas' time, there was only one Dhritarashtra. But in Kali Yuga today, there are many Dhritarashtras. If we are not careful, right, we have a Dhritarashtra in us also. We can't let go of something. Very difficult. Sometimes Prabhu's Mataji's is not even the property that you can't let go. Sometimes it's just a principle based on pride. No, I cannot say sorry to her. Even though I know I'm wrong, I will never say sorry. That is Dhritarashtra also. Dhritarashtra never asked for forgiveness for all the wrong he did in the Mahabharata war. He never did. He never did. Right till the end. And that is why in his last days, Vidura decided, his brother Vidura, who went on pilgrimage, who did not take part in the war, he came back. He came back. Vidura knew that Dhritarashtra was sitting there. And so he came to see him. And he addressed him very nicely as a brother. He says so nicely in Bhagavatam, "My dear king, please do not delay. By looking at your face, I can understand how much fear has overtaken you." Dhritarashtra was fearful. You know why was he fearful? He was fearful that tomorrow morning he wakes up and he will lose the throne. He had lost everything. But he was still worried. Maybe this chair tomorrow they will take, Maybe they'll take this chair. I have nothing left. So there was fear on his face. And Vidura then said, this frightful situation that you are under cannot be remedied. There is no solution to it. Not by you, not by any person in this material world. Why? It is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who has come as time, Kala. He has approached you, my dear brother, and he has taken everything away from you. That's what Krishna does. Krishna in this world is time. Have you noticed? Now it's already 8:45. Time has just passed. It's just passed. And now after I speak, it'll be 8:50. It passes. Time waits for nobody. You cannot say, hold on now, time wait. Time doesn't wait. You have to wait for time. Time waits for no one. So Vidura was told Dhritarashtra, time is running. It is not under your control. Your father has died. Your brothers are gone. Your well-wishers are gone. Some of them are dead. Many others will die. All your sons are gone. You yourself are almost gone. You're almost at the death end. And then he says very nicely that you are blind, right? You've always been blind. But now you're spiritually blind. You can't understand this thing. You have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened. Your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose. At least he had teeth, Dhritarashtra. Most of us by then, I don't think we'll have teeth. But he had teeth, but they were loose. Vidura, by looking at Dhritarashtra, could say, your liver is defective. Because he was looking very yellow, you see. Jaundice. Your liver is defective. And you are coughing mucus. All this was told by Vidura to Dhritarashtra. He was frightening him to wake him up, that you are not the quivering water. The moon doesn't quiver. The moon is still. But you have mistaken the moon to be quivering. That is your problem. And then he said, you are living the life worse than a dog. Because a dog waits for scraps of bones outside. Dhritarashtra, you are doing that. Except you are deluxe edition of a dog. Instead of dog sitting outside, you are sitting on a nice chair. But you're still a dog. You're still waiting for someone to give you some scraps. That's what you're doing. And finally he told him, don't lead a degraded life. There is no need to live a life like this. Living on others' charity is the most heinous thing for a Kshatriya. You know that, right? Even for us generally, we should never live on anyone's charity because it is demeaning. There must be some honor to our living, you see. And after telling him that, he told Dhritarashtra, now leave immediately for the north. And when you go there, sit down and meditate on the Supreme. And in doing so, you will cut off the ties to the cycle of birth and death. In other words, he was telling him to understand and become dhira, not to become bewildered. To become dhira and understand that you're not this body. Why are you spending so much time on this sharir? It's going to go. Spend time on your atma. That you have not spent time on. That's why it is stated that if we don't spend time taking care of our soul, it is like keeping a bird in a cage. You have a beautiful bird, but you have an ivory cage. So what happens is the owner of the ivory cage, he's cleaning the cage all the time, but he's forgotten to feed the bird. That is our situation. We are always thinking of the cage. Cage looks very nice, but we have forgotten the bird. That bird is our sharir. That is our problem. So Vidura was so powerful because he was not attached to his body. He could transmit that knowledge to Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra, what did he do? In that night itself, without even telling Yudhishthir Maharaj, Dhritarashtra just got up. And after hearing from his brother, he walked out of the palace. He went to the north and Gandhari followed him. And there he sat down in meditation. And because his meditation was so intense, Bhagavatam says, at the appointed time, when he became self-realized, the body itself became self-combustible. The body burnt itself. And Gandhari followed him in the same way. Yudhishthir Maharaj was very sad when he heard that. Because next morning he woke up, uncle and auntie both are gone. What to do? And Narada Muni came at that point of time. And Yudhishthira Maharaj was so worried, where have they gone? What will happen to them? And Narada told him one very nice thing. You, Dhritarashtra and all of us, we are all under the trap of Kala, time, Karma, actions and Guna, the material modes. Nobody is out of it. So if you are in the net, what makes you think you can save someone who's also in the net? Supposing two fish are caught in the net and one fish tells the other fish, hey, don't worry, I'll take you out of the net. The other fish will laugh, right? And say, you yourself are caught. You think you can get me out? You need someone outside the net to get you out of the net. So again, we can become so attached to this body. We think that we have the solutions to life, but it is Krishna who has the solutions to life. This is very, very important point. And one last point that I should tell you, which is really important for us to understand, is that when we understand that time is running, we will not waste time anymore. This is very important. We will not become bewildered when our body is changing, because we know it is natural. But we should be worried that we are not connected to our soul. That is something for us to worry about. How connected are we to Krishna? And the only way to become connected to Krishna is if we perform devotional service. That is why Savai Nivritti Dharmena. Detach yourself from the material consciousness and engage yourself in Krishna's service. Same activity, but do it for Krishna. The next time you make something for the family, you want to cook something for the family, please offer that food to Krishna as bhoga. It will become prasad and then feed the family. In our tradition, if anyone received any clothes, they would put it in front of Krishna first and offer it. Then they would take it and wear it. Till today we have that tradition, right? We still have that tradition. So we don't take anything without offering it to Krishna. And supposing we say, oh, but this one cannot be offered to Krishna, that means we shouldn't take it. That means we shouldn't take it. If that which cannot be offered to the Lord, why should we take it? That is the discipline that comes when you take up spiritual life. You see the point? And therefore, Savai Nivritti Dharmena, Vasudevanukampaya. For one who does that, Vasudev, Krishna, he will give you anukampaya. He will give you the mercy. When Krishna gives you mercy, he will enlighten you. Why are we seated here today? Is it by accident? No. It is Krishna's mercy. Krishna wants us to learn something here. He wants everyone, myself included, all of us to learn something. That is why we are hearing this. So he says, by Krishna's mercy, on the platform of Bhagavad Bhakti Yogena, if we perform devotional service, on that platform Krishna's mercy will come. And when that happens, Tirodatte Shanai Iha, gradually we will come out of this conception that we are just this body. It will take a bit of time, Prabhus and Mataji. It cannot happen overnight. So many lifetimes, we have forgotten Krishna. Do you really think we can remember Krishna just like that? It will take time. Sometimes when we take up Bhakti Yoga, like everything else in life, we want to express, in Singapore, everything is instant, isn't it? I have clients, who tell me that, oh, I want this document done when? Yesterday. Not even today. It's so urgent, he wants it yesterday. My point is, everyone is running after this. So that's a very important point for us to remember. Okay, one last point I want to state to you, and that is a very nice shloka that comes in the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, it is very nicely stated, at the time of death, whatever wealth that we have, right, will stay in a very safe place. It will not leave there. It will stay there. Your money is in the bank. Believe me, the bank will keep the money. You just won't get to keep the money because you're dead. So this is one point we have to realize. The second point, it tells us that whatever cows and goats, in those days it was cows and goats, whatever cows and goats that you keep, they will stay where they are also. They are not going to move. Then Mahabharata also tells us that our wives who accompany us, provided we are the husbands, they can only accompany us up to the doorway. In tradition, they only accompany us up to the doorway. They can't go with us. Lifelong partners. But at the end, she has to stop at the doorway. Then Mahabharata goes on to tell us that our friends and relatives will come with us. They will come with us. They will go all the way up to the funeral ground. But that's all they can go up to. They can't jump on the pyre. And then Mahabharata tells us that our own body will follow us up to the pyre. But it can only stop there because the body will be burnt. It cannot follow us after that. It cannot follow us after that. So the only thing we take in this life, the only stock we take, is the stock of our devotional service. If that stock is good at the point of death, we will go back to Krishna. If that stock is not enough, then welcome back to the world until we get the stock. So how many times, Prabhus and Matajis, you want to come back? It's up to you. If you feel, oh, I just love this life so much and I want to come back again, this life my husband was not so good. Krishna, I pray next life I'll get a better husband. Good luck. Because there is nothing in this world that is actually satisfying. The mind's nature is like that. It is our nature. And no matter how many lives you take without Krishna, you will have the same problem. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki. Jai Gaura Premanjana. Are there any questions, comments, ideas? At least one or two. That will be nice. It's not an easy concept to remember. That's why theoretically you cannot practice it. You can practice it on the platform of bhakti. The more bhakti you do, naturally you will find that you will have the awareness that whatever happens to this body, there is something beyond this body. But it's practice. Like everything else in life is all practice. Silence means consent. So take it back. Take back the concept. The next time you get into trouble and you're very disturbed, think of what is quivering. Is it the water that's quivering? Or is it the moon that is quivering? You are the moon. Don't quiver like the water. You have a higher nature. Be dhira. Understand it from Krishna's perspective. Chant when you become bewildered. And in 10 minutes, 15 minutes of chanting, I guarantee you on the basis of Shastra, you'll become peaceful. You'll have a better understanding of the world around you. You will. The next time your wife or your husband or your children disappoint you, and it will happen in life, right? Take it by understanding that you are not this body. This is part of life. Take it as part of life. And the next time you disappoint someone, because that will also happen, tell them to understand that this is also part of life. Because this is the world.
How to react at that point where like somebody is in very anger and he throws it on us.
Yeah, if the person is angry, if someone is angry and they throw it at you, actually Mataji, if someone is angry and you are also angry, anyone will tell you that is a sure formula for destruction, right? It's very difficult. Two people being angry doesn't help the situation. But if you are by nature angry or you become upset, you don't have to be as angry as the person, but you can be firm. You can explain why you are thinking this way. You can talk to the person not in a very angry way, But that will come because of your devotional service. To the extent of your bhakti, if you apply your mind to think the person is angry with me because the person is bewildered or they are disturbed. But if I'm also angry with them, then I'm also quivering, isn't it? That way you will exercise restraint. And if you're really upset, Mataji, my suggestion is at the point when you want to say something, just say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Your husband may be upset at that point, but when he hears you chant, how can he become upset with you? He has to accept, isn't it? Yeah. So that's very useful. Any other points? It's a very practical point.
I just want to ask you one thing.
Sure, Prabhu.
So, when we talk about our devotion,
Yes.
so I have grown up in an environment where my family, my paternal parents coming from the Arya Samaj background.
Sure.
But my maternal parents come from the Krishna background. So in
Right.
their place they call it Jai Shri Krishna, so they are from Devaki.
Yeah.
So I have taken it from them. So I had this, I mean, when I was, I think, in grade 4 and 5th, I have been worshipping Lord Krishna. But slowly and gradually, my inclination was towards Lord Hanuman.
Mm.
So, is it necessary that everything we say and take it back to Krishna, or is it okay to continue with Lord in whatever form? In my opinion, I think is the faith has to be there. And just to give you another example today, I was watching a movie today with my son, Avatar, which is a Hollywood movie, and I was telling him, see, we as a human have, made this movie. I don't know how many of us have seen that, but we could not envision the best human body. If we have seen those people, I mean, that's the best of the technology we could use. This is the best body one can think of, and those who do not believe in Almighty, I always feel that how can they make a body something like this? So, is it has to be Krishna, or it's okay to continue with any form?
Very good point. There are two ways to look at it, Prabhu, and it really depends on where we are in our spiritual journey. Hanumanji is a devotee of the Lord. He never claims himself to be God. In all his stotras and all, he's exalted because he's a devotee of God. So if we follow the footsteps of the devotees of God, then we will definitely, by their mercy, come to the lotus feet of God. So if you please Hanumanji or you please the devotees, then Hanumanji's greatest prayer will be that you connect with Lord Ram, because that is his chosen Lord, right? So there's no harm in keeping Hanumanji as your object of worship. But we should understand that Hanumanji himself is worshipping Lord Ram, because Lord Ram and Krishna are non-different, and they are declared by Shastras as Ishwaraha, Parama Krishna. So when we understand that, then that is easy. That is the correct understanding, and that will help our devotional service. Now, when we look at the Devatas, for example, in Shastras, the Devatas, in Bhagavad Gita, Devatas, they are considered very, very exalted and powerful personalities who can actually bring us to Krishna. They are, in the scheme of creation, extremely powerful personalities. But ultimately, even if we were to pray to them, our prayers will eventually come to Krishna. Bhagavad Gita tells us that in the 7th chapter, that whatever prayer you offer to a Devata, the Devata can only fulfill your prayer with the sanction of the Lord. That is in Shastras. So it's really a question now of whether you want to take a direct route to the person who is the source of power, Sarva Karana Karanam, or you want to take a roundabout route for whatever reason there could be. Sometimes, we have grown up in a certain way, in a certain tradition, we are very used to it. That's why we tell people, don't disrupt what you have, but just put Krishna in the center, or you just add Krishna. If you have many mantras in the morning to chant, you chant. We don't say you don't, but you just add Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. That's it. And it's so nice that you have been born in the family of this sampradaya. Because if you say that, you are worshipping Krishna, you chant Jai Shri Krishna, then this is part of the Vallabha sampradaya, which is a very powerful and fully authorized sampradaya because it was started by Vallabhacharya. And that is why the worship of Krishna there is very powerful. So you are blessed. You have the opportunity. So our meeting is not accident, you see. There must be some arrangement. Is it helpful, Prabhu?
There's one more point I want
Yes.
to say. So my mother-in-law is coming from another sect of Hinduism that is called Radha Swami.
Yeah.
So I was having this
Radha Swami.
Radha Swami.
Yes.
She often encourages me why you get into this ideology.
Yeah.
So and she works. So I'm from Delhi and she worked in MD. So I didn't try to argue with her, but I said, Mummy, you go to office, and how do you go to office? She said, I go sometime on a scooter, sometime my brother-in-law drops by a car, or sometimes he takes a helmet. I said, do you wear a helmet in metro that you take, or do you put a seat belt on a scooter?
Yes.
Not really. Other people are coming from all the different mediums, but you all are going to the office.
Yes.
So I have opted. So ultimately, we all are looking for the Almighty.
Yes.
So my medium is through idol worship.
Yes.
So I am following whatever I have been grown up with.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion of the idol worship? And then a lot of people criticize about it.
I'll give you the opinion of Shastras. It's best. In Shastras, the highest form of worship of God is known as the worship of Bhagwan. The next form of worship of Bhagwan is known as the worship of Paramatma. And then the next way of worshipping God is the worship of God as impersonal, Brahman feature. So actually, according to Shastras, when you try to worship God as an impersonal feature, it is almost like worshipping the rays of a sunshine. Sun rays are coming. Sun rays are coming. They're actually the impersonal feature of the sun. But without the sun, there are no rays. So therefore, without a personal feature, there is no impersonal feature actually. So the Shastras are very clear, Prabhu, that the highest form of worship of the Lord is actually the form of His form. And that is why God is known as Satchit Ananda Vigraha. The people who do not believe in form will stop at Satchit Anand. But how can someone be happy without form? Happiness has to be expressed through form. And practical thing is this. Now supposing we have these beautiful deities, right? Radha Vallabh, Prabhu? It's Radha Vallabh, right? Now if you didn't have the deities there and you just had a light there or nothing there, and you tell everyone for half an hour close your eyes and just meditate on the void, and then you compare it to opening your eyes and seeing the form of the Lord. Anyone practically, psychologically, physiologically will tell you it's so much easier to rest your heart and concentrate yourself on a form. It's just so much easier. You know why we are talking so much nicely compared to Zoom? Because we are all now personal with each other. Now if in Zoom you are there, that's okay. But then if you don't have video, it becomes more impersonal. More impersonal. Supposing you were in a relationship with your mother, and all the time mother says, you don't have to see me. We don't have to see each other. Let's just talk on the phone. We don't have to see each other. After a while you say, okay, that's nice, but nothing like seeing her, isn't it? Imagine husband and wife get married. After that they say, now we will be in impersonal relationship. You be somewhere, you be somewhere. Every day there's a curtain between us. We just talk to each other. Nobody will be happy. Even in material world, the form is so important to concentrate on God. So it is not that the worship of God in impersonal feature is not there. It is there. But it is an evolutionary stage to come to the point of understanding God as the Supreme Person. And that's why we don't use the word idol. Idol is Sir Winston Churchill in Trafalgar Square. That is an idol. Because nobody is performing bhaja. No worship. Some man comes once a week to clean off all the bird droppings on Sir Winston Churchill. That is an idol. But you go to our temples and you see how from morning the Lord is given food. He is woken up with prayers. And then in the evening there are prayers. Throughout the day there is glorification, there is worship. That is why the correct word is not idol, it is murti. Murti means the Lord who has manifested in His form and descended in this world.
And when we bring murti at our home, it is necessary to have a pran pratishtha, or we can...
It is actually best to have some kind of what we call pran pratishtha ceremonies normally happen in temples, Prabhu, but we can have a deity welcoming ceremony. We can do kirtan, we can do a nice abhishek, and then we feed the devotees. So imagine not having any of that and just saying, sit down now and be quiet. Pran pratishtha is just in the heart. It sounds good on paper. It sounds very philosophical. Sometimes people say, God is everywhere. Why do I need to go to temple? Yeah, that's true. But try going to the temple every day and you see how much your relationship improves. It's much better. Imagine telling your wife, I love you very much, but you don't buy her jewelry, you don't buy her sari, you don't get her anything. And the next Diwali comes, you say, oh, I love you very much. Things will start going from the kitchen to you. Because everyone will tell you that talk is cheap, but action is what we are looking for. Exactly. Let's chant Krishna's name, shall we? So please remember this point. The next time someone comes to tell you about this, let them know, very simple. It is very simple. It is very commonsensical. Actually, bhakti is commonsensical. Common sense means it should be common to all of us. That's how it should be. If it's not common sense, that means it's funny. It's a bit funny. I'll just tell you one thing. If I have 2 minutes, Tulsi Chandru, do I have 2 minutes? Oh, he's inside. Machi, do I have 2 minutes more? Okay. There was this story about two pilgrims who were going up. They were going up to see a form of the Lord. One pilgrim was very much telling the other pilgrim that actually God is everywhere. He is in you, He is in me. There's no need to worship Him anywhere. He has no form. And everything is God. The other devotee was saying, everything is part of God, but doesn't mean everything is God. There is distinction between God and the servant of God or the devotee of God. That's why there's a relationship. And they argued. Finally, they were going to sleep. And it was Himalayas, so it's very cold. In the night, they got into the tent and they got a blanket. So the devotee turned to the impersonalist and said, my friend, you agree that everything is God, right? He said, yeah. And it's all formless, right? Yes. And the Shakti is everywhere, exactly. So that means this blanket that you see, right? It is composed of fibers, isn't it? Threads. Yes, I agree. And every thread, right? There is God in it. Yes, because everything is God. So then fine. You take a thread from the blanket and keep it with you and sleep. Because you have come to the realization that everything is God. So just hold the blanket, the one thread, and you go to sleep. And I will sleep with the rest of the blanket. Because I believe the blanket is a creation of God. But it's not God. It's a creation of God. Within 15 minutes of sleeping, the impersonalist comes over to the devotee and says, if you don't mind, can I share the blanket with you? Because it's all good talk, Prabhu, But when it comes to the ground reality, it doesn't pan out. So your point is very good. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Let's chant Krishna's names. And we should chant very loudly. Mataji, your neighbors are okay, huh? Oh, so we have a Mridanga player here. Very nice. You play louder? You play loud? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Jai Radha Vallabh, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Can't hear you. Can't hear the children. Yeah, you were so loud in the room. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hari Hari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, holy names. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra Yuga Dharma ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Gaura Premanande. Well played, very nice.